Prime as well. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Aimchess. Let me just get the games because I didn't actually download them. So give me 1 second while I pull that up. But I'm going to talk a little bit. I guess I'll just talk very specifically, I think, about Danya. I don't think like there's much else in terms of game analysis or anything to talk about. So let me just find Danya's games. There were just a couple things that I want to go over. Let me pull them up. Okay, he won his 5th round game, I think it was, if I'm not 6th round game. Right, 1 second. Okay, there we go. That's 1. Okay, I'm just gonna show basically all of Daniel's games. I think pretty much just talk about that. I don't have anything else set. Let me go back to games. Right, he did play around 7. 8, he had white. Yes. Okay, 1 second. Round 9, he played around 9. Right, round 9 was also important too. Second. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, you guys. I'm just trying to get the downloads of the games, which is why it's taking me forever. Right, there we go. All right. All right, you guys. So there we go. Let me change the scene. Just give me 1 second. Put it in dark mode as well. Wait. All right, there we go. All right, you guys. So we're gonna go over just talk specifically about Danya in terms of the Meltwater event that just happened, or that's going on right now. I think like there isn't much else really to be said. Let me stop the music so I can hear myself. There isn't really much else that I would say. I think pretty standard so far when you look at the event. I think you see Magnus, Artemiev, and Aronian. They're probably having the best events. After that, it still looks like Wesley's gonna get in. We'll see what happens with Dan if he can get in. Right now he's on the outside looking in. He's number 9, but he is, of course, I would say the first like wild card per se, first player who's not like a 2700 level plus player who is making waves, and he is threatening to qualify. I can't think of anyone else who came close to the wild cards who is well below 2700 who had a chance of qualifying going to the final day. Like there have been many wild cards, but none of them were close. All right, so we're just going to talk about Dana's games. Okay, so the first thing I'm saying, this is one thing and I don't want people to take this the wrong way because they could, but one thing that people tend to generally not understand with the improvement of players over time is when you see players playing, you see them doing really well. It's like, well, if they're 2600, for example, why aren't they 2700? Now, a lot of that has to do with, frankly, the level of respect that you're afforded by the players who are better than you. So like when everybody's like 2500, maybe even 2550, 2600, players generally they're just playing for the win. They're not really thinking about anything more than playing for the win. But when you start playing at the higher levels, the players who are 2700 plus, generally they're not really sure what to do. So like when they played Daniel in this tournament with the black pieces, since the first game we're going to look at is the game against Wesley, they're not sure, what do I do? Do I play my regular repertoire, or do I sort of try to put pressure on him and win the game? Because on paper, at least, Daniel's 2620, I think that's his rating, and you know, he's 100 points or 150 in this case lower than Wesley. So and so like what you see here is you see this pretty standard opening, and we get to this position on move 3, and this is already the first situation where Wesley decides to do something. Thank you to Champ 1977 for the 100 gifted subs. Thank you so much to Champ. Thank you so much. I'm gonna replay that, by the way, just for Champ. How do I replay it? 1 second. Scroll all the way to the bottom. I'm gonna replay that so you guys get the sound if I can. But how do I replay it? Anyway, I can't figure it out. Thank you so much, the champ, for the 100 get to subs. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Really amazing. Champ donated, I think, like 70 tier 3 subs the other day as well. So you're a champion, you're a legend. Thank you so much. All right, so back to the game. This is the first spot where normally if Wesley was playing someone who's 2750, he'd be okay. Well, I'm black. I'm gonna be happy with a draw. I want to be stable. But in this case, of course, Wesley does not play knight f6. Now, Wesley has played black against Daniel Naroditsky in the US Championship before, and in that game, what happened is we had the classic legendary draw where Daniel played knight takes e4, d4, Wesley played knight d6, takes, a4, knight d4, takes, d5, takes, check, back and forth, or not queen d5, back and forth, and that clinched the US Championship title for Wesley. So now in this game, Wesley, of course, he's in the running. I think he felt like there was some necessary urge to try and put pressure on Daniel. So he chooses not to play his normal Berlin defense. Instead, he decides to play the Archangel variation of the Spanish, which he does not generally play. Now, also, I suspect that Wesley, while he's familiar with this, it's not something that he looked at for this game, and he might have even only looked at it today, in fact. So already it's a little bit of I don't know if you want to say disrespect or underestimating his opponent, but definitely not treating Daniel like the dangerous player that he is. So Daniel plays d3. I mean, pretty standard stuff, nothing too crazy. Very dry decision by Daniel to play a b5 and bishop b3. Normally there are a lot more challenging ways to play. For example, a4 is very aggressive. There's c3, d4. But he plays something that I even though it's objectively you don't have an advantage, it's very easy to play here. And underestimating works out in Daniel's favor would be fine with me. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, that's kind of the whole point that I'm making, is that when players underestimate you, it's a lot easier to play against them than if they sort of, I don't want to say overestimate you, but they're like, you know what, I'm going to treat Daniel like his name is Magnus Carlsen. I'm going to give him no chances to win. And when that happens, that's generally like why players, when they start peaking, they start getting above like 2630s, 2640s, and going closer to 2700. People actually, their mindset shifts a lot more to that as opposed to the traditional mindset of like they're 2620, I should just beat them and blow them off the board. So anyway, castles is played by Wesley. Queen e1, queen e7, knight h4. Again, not much for white here, but also very limited risk and very easy to play. And as we'll see in the game, Wesley here basically fails to come with a good plan. Daniel has a double e pawns. At the same time, however, he has an open f file and a great bishop on b3 to boot. So Wesley goes g6 here. Now, when I saw this move, I hated this move, and I actually felt it after I saw g6 that there might be some magic. There might be some magic in the air for Daniel. So g6 is played, knight c3, knight b4, a move that I guess makes some sense. It prevents knight d5. Also, you maybe now can push c5, c4, and additionally, your knight is putting pressure on c2 and b3 here at the moment. So c5, c4 would be deadly. So queen g3 is played here, king g7. Another move that when I saw this, I was like, wow, Wesley is very bold, because in this position, while I think it's already a little unpleasant, I would have expected knight h5. But knight h5 actually maybe is a blunder. Oh, maybe you can actually get away with this. As soon as I said knight h5, I'm like, wait, maybe there's knight g6. And as you guys can see from the bar, knight g6 in fact does exist. So yeah, so my instinct is kind of right that knight h5, even though on first glance it looks fine, is not the best move. However, I think bishop e6 is also probably fine. Although yeah, knight f5, queen d8, maybe not so simple to play. So yeah, so king g7 is played by Wesley, knight f5 takes. Now the problem here for black is that the bishop on b3 is permanently an issue, whereas for example, if you get this bishop and close the diagonal, the bishop on b3 doesn't really have threats. But when we get to this position, bishop is unimpeded now, and it's just a clean diagonal. There's no way to close it. So white has very pleasant play, rook f1, put as much pressure on f7 as possible. Meanwhile, the knight on b4, a little bit off sides, not really where you want it. You'd rather have it like on e6 or potentially e7, but it's all the way over on b4. And it can't even really come back because there are going to be issues like maybe here it works, but you have to worry about like rook f1, and then if you move the knight, there's knight d5, for example. So knight is really just glued to b4. So knight d7 is played, rook f1, played by Daniel, f6, and now he plays knight d5. And I don't think this was the best move. I actually was kind of surprised that he didn't just go h4, h5 immediately here. Very surprising in a way. At the same time, conceptually it makes a lot of sense, because now you know there's one less piece on the board, and it's much easier with h4 h5. Like the knight can't really do anything, and if like knight b6, you just very quietly can retreat back to like not a2 probably, but just back to b3, and it should be, actually maybe it's not better, huh? Actually wait, knight b6. Actually I'm kind of confused. Wait, why didn't Wesley just go knight b6 in this game? Huh? Actually, knight b6 is very obvious, because bishop b3, c5, c4, and if you go bishop a2, rook a8, and again, the only pressure white has is the double rooks. Oh no, sorry, did he play? Oh, he did. Okay, h4, and then he played c6. Okay, so this is the bad move. Actually, right here, this is then I don't understand. Like, why didn't Wesley just take the bishop on d5 here? Because even though it feels a little bit uncomfortable with only rooks and a queen, it's going to be very hard for white to break through. Now, it's not to say it's not potentially unpleasant, but I don't even know why you can't just go king h8 here, rook f2, and then I don't want to say f5 maybe, although maybe f5, h5, queen g7. I mean, white's probably better, but I'm not sure if it's winning. I'm not sure if it's decisive here. At any rate, very surprising that in this position Wesley does not take on d5. Instead, he goes c6, and now bishop takes c6, and Wesley goes queen c7, and essentially for Danya, this is all he can ask for. Not only is he able to attack in this position, but he's not even having to sacrifice any material to do it. So takes, queen c2, h5, obvious move. You have to attack towards where the king is. You don't care about a pawn on b2. Queen b2, h6, another perfect move by Danya. King h8. If you take the pawn on h6 here, I think after rook f6, you take, there's check, and queen f6. Like, this is just GG's. You go here, I'm sure there, maybe even just queen d6 is simple, hitting the rook, hitting the knight. King is wide open, checkmate's abound, and you're just losing. So it's just, I mean, pretty much over. You can go king g7, but then white does the legendary triple stack, and you're again in deep doo-doo. So instead he goes king h8, and now Daniel finds a very nice move, the best move of the position, which is queen to g5 here. And after queen g5, you take the queen, rook takes f8, rook takes f8, rook takes f8 is just checkmate. King is stuck in the box. The pawn and the rook basically checkmate the king here. And so he goes queen takes b5, rook takes f6, rook e8, rook g6. Of course you can't take, because then there's the lolly checkmate. Queen f6, king g7, queen 8, queen g7. Pawn protects the queen, and knight d7, rook g7, and here Wesley resigns. He could have played rook g8, but after rook g8, there's a brutal double stack on the 7th laterally with rook f7 threatening checkmate on h7, and it's just curtains, game over, just resign. So very, very nice game from Danya. I think this was a clear case of Wesley really underestimating Danya. I think a couple things. For example, I guarantee you, if Wesley was playing as either myself or Magnus, he would have snapped this bishop in 2 seconds. He would have snapped it immediately. He would not have played the c6 move. But he completely, I guess he just assumed that Danya would like miss something or not find the best attacking moves. But these ideas are like so natural and so intuitive that it's really quite poor that Wesley. I mean, I guess just expected Danya to not play them, frankly, because I don't really have any other good explanation for these moves. So yeah, so very, very nice game for Daniel. He won this first game, gets on the scoreboard, puts himself in contention. All right, so next game we're going to look at was, I think, his third game, and this is also another game which I think has very little to do with the opening. Slam Wesley said to praise Daniel. Daniel found all the best moves. No, he found the best moves. I'm saying that Wesley really didn't show him the respect that he should have. So yeah. So third game, I think this was the third game of the day between Daniel Naroditsky and Quang Lim. Whoops, sorry, wrong game. Yeah, this is the right one. So b3 is played, d5 here. So Daniel plays b3, bishop b2. Now this is an opening that I myself have played on many occasions. Now, what I'm going to say is, in probably all my games playing this in over the board rapid and blitz, I don't think I've ever gotten a winning position on move 10. And with this opening. And so we go through this game, and again, what I would say is that this game, even more so than Wesley, is a clear sign of an opponent who definitely not even underestimated Daniel, but basically just had no respect for him with the way he played. Because a5 here is I mean, it's kind of a move. I mean, it's not a great move here. You should probably just play c6 and consolidate your center and just play the game. Like c6, something normal, like, I don't know, queen e2, knight f3, Very normal play. White's a little bit better, but the game goes on. Instead, after e4, Quang plays a5. Very strange move. Daniel goes to a3 now. I think here already e takes d5 is supposed to be very, very strong. So after pawn takes d5 here, I think there's queen e2, bishop e7 takes, and I don't remember if it's castles here. Oh, computer says knight h3 is the best move, but I know this should be pretty shaky. So instead he plays a3. Quang goes to a4, b4, and c5, which forces Daniel to find this pawn takes pawn move. And now Quang plays pawn takes b4, and after d takes e6, essentially the game is already over. After 11 moves, starting with b3 on move 1, white is completely winning and it's +2. And I would say like this is a clear sign of just like this is not even underestimating Daniel. This is just like I'm just like I'm better than him. I can win with anything. So really inexplicable play in this opening. Again, Daniel ends up misplaying it, mind you. Like the game should have been over. I think this was where I saw it. Queen b1, queen c5, big blunder. d4, amazing move by Daniel, by the way. Very good. Very good tactical. He has a very good tactical eye, which again to someone like me is not surprising because I've played him a gazillion times online. Why everybody else hasn't seen those games or seemingly, I mean, is oblivious to it or doesn't understand, I mean, really befuddles me because I feel like everybody's watched us play chess, play all these blitz matches or blitz games online, and somehow they magically forget like the Daniel's really good at tactics. So queen takes c4 is played. Rook c3. Thank you to Wardell for the raid with a party of 1,202. Thank you to my main man Wardell from Canada. Thank you so much for the raid, man. Hope your Valorant streams are well. I know you were I think you said you were raging with Apex or something. So if you were playing Apex, you know, or not Apex, sorry, it was Escape from Tarkov. Sorry, other game. Anyway, hope you had a good stream. Everybody's watching. We're looking at a little bit of chess. I'm doing some analysis on a chess event that was held today for a little bit. And we're just chilling. We're just having fun. All right. So rook c3, queen e6, queen takes b5. Check is played here. Hits the king, hits the knight. Classic right triangle, of course. And if black blocks with the knight, then of course you have a very nice move. You go rook c8 check. Hit the king, king moves, eat the rook for free. And now you have two rooks, a bishop and knight. Black has a rook and two knights, so he's behind because he has one knight for a rook. And a rook is worth 5, and a knight is worth 3. Instead, king e7 is played. Rook e3, knight e4, takes. d5, great move. You see the op on e4 is completely pinned here by the rook on e3. It just puts pressure on the king on e7 and the queen on e6. So now queen b6 is played. Daniel takes the op on e4, king d6, and unfortunately here Daniel trades queens, and he goes on to win in a very long end game. He goes on to win in a very long end game. But if he had gone queen c4 and trusted the blitz intuition, and just trusted that somehow there was a checkmate, he would have won this game on the spot. So it was a little bit of like, I think, I don't want to say nerves, but maybe he just like, he was worried because he knew he was better if he trades queens versus doesn't, rather than trusting the pure instinct, because we're in a high stress competitive environment. If he had gone queen c4, queen b1, king d2 takes, and just queen b4, he would have won this game. Actually, wait, is it queen b4 or is it knight c3? Actually, it's knight c3, right? Yeah, it's knight c3, and you threaten knight b5 here, and white's completely winning. So I mean, maybe you can say a little bit of nerves or just not quite trusting the intuition. However, even after he traded the queens, he would go on to win a very nice long end game and get on the board. And he wasn't actually winning in this end game either. So he played really well. Good technical precision to win it. So good game. But I would say this game though was 100% just no respect. That's all that needs to be said. Just no respect based on the opening. All right, so the last game, actually, Ali Rez game, I'm not going to go over. The last game that I'll talk about very briefly, another sign of not sort of showing respect or sort of something that confused me, was the game between Duda and Naroditsky, Jan Christos Duda and Daniel Naroditsky. The final game, which was that, you know, they played this King's Indian. Duda plays f3, the same-ish variation, which I played for a long time, by the way, you guys. From the time I was about 12 years old to about 17, I played the King's Indian a lot with black, but with white, the lines that I played, the line that I played was f3 with bishop g5 or f3 with bishop e3. You can't see the name on top. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me adjust that. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about. Wait, why is the chessboard so big? Wait 1 second. Wait, what did I do wrong? Give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, there you go. All right, that should be good. Okay, there we go. All right, so yeah, so this we have the same variation of the King's Indian. C5 is played, D5, E6, takes A6, A4, Rook E8. Now again, as I said, I played this a million times online on the Internet Chess Club when I was very young. With white, so I'm very familiar with it. Normally, the idea is that white's trying to outweigh black here. So black wants to develop these three pieces on the queen side: the rook, the knight, and the bishop. Now, the most obvious way to develop is to go knight bd7. But this would be a huge mistake because now white can play the very weird looking but an extravagant knight h3, which in fact is very strong. And the idea is that you put the knight on f2, bishop e2, castle your king, and you have very fluid development. Also, for example, if you get some position, at some point maybe you can play f4 because your knight guards the g4 square. So knight on f2 is really good because it guards the pawn so you can push, and it also guards g4 long term. So instead, black wants to avoid that. So Daniel plays rook e8. And here, Duda plays this move, bishop e2. Now, what's great about this move is that, first of all, it's a terrible move. But secondly, it's a move that I played many times, like in blitz games against IMs, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it, and they're probably going to pre-move knight d7, or they're going to do something. And most cases, like probably 80% of the time, they play knight d7. I go knight h3. I'm like, yes, I got exactly what I want. I put the knight on f2, and I'm very, very happy. But to do this in a rapid game against someone who's very strong and hoping they're gonna just blunder with knight d7 is again another clear sign of just like I don't know if respect is the word or just like thinking that Daniel's some kind of terrible chess player, because obviously if you play the King's Indian, you know that the whole point of putting the bishop here is you're waiting to go knight h3. You're waiting for black to blunder knight d7 and play it, but black can still outweight you by just pushing a pawn like Daniel does here with h5. And now you'll notice the problem is, well, where do you develop your knight? You have bishop on e2 that's in the way. So traditionally, if we go back here, knight e2 is the normal way you develop. You go knight e2, something like knight d7, knight c1, and the game goes on. Or you go knight g3. Both these knight moves are possible. But the point is, if black doesn't blunder and give you this knight jump, you basically have to put the knight on e2 and go to g3 or c1. But instead, Duda plays bishop e2, basically trying to cheese Danya and hope that somehow he's going to be like, oh, what's this move? I just developed knight d7, and completely fall asleep and forget about knight h3. But of course, Danya doesn't do that. He plays h5, and now, as I said, you look at this white knight. If you go to the rim, I just take and develop, and now you have these very bad double stacked pawns. Your center is going to get attacked eventually, and it's not a good position. So instead, he plays h4, knight h7, g3, f5. Very logical moves by Danya, and he's just better already. Which, again, as I would say, is very weird because Duda recently qualified for the Candidates tournament by winning the FIDE World Cup. And here he is getting a worse position by move 13 with white. And it's just very, 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 very strange. Now, of course, the game would go on to end in a draw. So perhaps Daniel missed a slight opportunity. But when I looked through the game earlier, it didn't look like it was easy or completely clear. And it was probably only just a small advantage throughout. But again, why do you do this? Why do you do this? It makes no sense. And again, it's another clear case of where there's just like no respect. So game was a draw, right? Oh wait, no, game wasn't a draw. Wait, am I confusing with the other one? Wait, Duda won this game? Wait a second. Oh, maybe I thought this was a draw. Let me go ahead. So we get to this position, and this should have been a draw. Wait, how did Duda how did Daniel lose this? This is where I saw it. Yeah, I saw this position. I was sure it'd be a draw. So how did Daniel lose this game? Bishop c4 check takes. Okay, check here. Bishop d5 rook f8. He lets him get a6. Yeah, and now you get the bishop to e4. And now it's very unpleasant because now white has a classic wooden shield, and also your pawns are weak, and the king is close to the wide pawn. Oh, so he did end up losing this, huh? How bizarre. How bizarre indeed. Huh. So I guess here rook e8 was a better move, just to cut the king and then go rook d2. Again, easier said. You know, it's very easy after the fact to say that, but I guess somehow Duda wins this game. But at any rate, the opening choice was very dubious. And this, what I would want to say about that is, like, when people think that somebody can just jump from 2,600 to like maybe like top 100 in the world to 2,700, like top 30 or 40 in the world, the thing that changes is as you get better and better, people stop sort of underestimating you and they play their absolute best, most solid openings, which is why it's not as easy as people think. Just keep your rating going up in, like, you know, a straight upwards line, like stonks go, because it's completely different. So that's kind of what I would say about it. But With that being said, Danya has taken advantage of his opportunities, and he disconnected for 3 months or for 3 minutes. Ouch. Okay. But like I said, Danya's taking advantage of his opportunities, and he has a chance. I think for him, if he wants to qualify tomorrow, though, he's going to have to beat Eric Hansen in the first round. If he doesn't win his first round game in the Aimchess US Rapid tournament, he's not going to qualify. He's going to have to win the first game tomorrow to have a chance. So yeah, so that's what I would say in terms of this game. He has Eric with white, MDL is black, Lenny is white, Mamdiarov is black, and then Artemiev is white. Exactly. Those are his 5 games tomorrow. But if he doesn't beat Hansen, I don't see it happening. That's what I would say. Quite simply.